When you come from Napoli, la 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 la, life is long and joy is free, la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Can't you hear the music say la 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 la? Dance your troubles all away, la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. When you come to Napoli, la 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 la, sing this happy song with me, la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. When you come to Napoli, la 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 la, sing this happy song with me, la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Number 43. I, a lion cub of the Divine Mother, found myself thrown into the life among the sheep of human frailties, of fear, failure, and disease. Living long among them, I learned to bleat with weakness, forgetting my lion nature and its roars, which could frighten away all petty pestering sorrows. O lion of realization, thou didst drag me away from those bleating sheep to the mirror smooth waters of meditation. There didst thou cry, gaze, but I held my eyes tightly shut, bleeding with fear. Thy roar of wisdom then reverberated through my body. Thou maddest me, my heart shaking and spiritual urging opened my eyes, and there, lo, in the crystal pool of my inner peace, I saw my features to be even as thine own. Now, as I know myself as the lion of cosmic power, I will bleat no more with fear, weakness, and suffering, for I roar now with vibrant, almighty power. I bound about through the forest of all experiences, ceasing little creatures of vexing worries, timid fears, and wild hyenas of disbelief, devouring them ruthlessly. O lion of immortality, roar with me thine all-conquering power of wisdom.
This is a reading from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Week 34. How should we meet our tests? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the readings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Last week we considered Satan's temptation of Jesus in the wilderness after his baptism by John. We discussed the question, does Satan exist? All of us experience temptations of one kind or another in our lives, some of us frequently, others more occasionally. Whether temptation comes to us from our own subconscious or from outside ourselves, in secondary to the fact that it does come and that we must deal with it. More important, then, is the question how to deal with it. In fact, how to deal with tests of any kind. Martin Luther flung an ink pot at the devil, who had appeared to test him. A dark stain on the wall of Luther's cell is pointed out to tourists in support of the story. Unfortunately, our trials are not so often summarily dismissed. As a fellow monk once said to Swami Kriyananda, speaking of Satan, "If only I could get my hands on him." Jesus, during his temptations in the wilderness, overcame them and thereby set an example for all time by clinging the more determinedly to God. As Paramahansa Yogananda used to say, darkness cannot be driven out of a room with a stick. Once you turn on the light, however, the darkness will vanish as though it had never been. Jesus manifested this principle. The Bible tells us, therefore, that at last the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came in and ministered unto him. In the Bhagavad Gita, the point is clarified further by the added explanation that there are three qualities in human nature: sattvic, or spiritually uplifting and elevating; rajasic, or ego activating; and tamasic, or spiritually darkening. It is this triune aspect of human nature that the third chapter refers to with the words, "As fire is hidden by smoke, as a mirror is dulled by rust, and as an embryo is enclosed in the womb, so is the indwelling self enveloped by desire." Yogananda explained that each of these examples describes one of the qualities or gunas. Sattva guna, that which elevates our consciousness, can be freed of any identity with ego by a little puff of meditation and right affirmation. Rajoguna, which embroils the ego in restless activity, can be worked off with a little more and a little longer effort. Tamoguna, embracing as it does such mental states as laziness and stupidity, can only be outgrown in time, since it inhibits even the desire for self-improvement. The example Jesus gave us was intended more for those in whom sattva guna is predominant. But if you yourself find elements in your consciousness that resist even the effort to cling to God in prayer and meditation, don't despair. Patience, as it has been well said, is the fastest path to God. As long as your efforts take you steadfastly in the right direction, you will come out right in time. Remember Yogananda's words, "A saint is a sinner who never gave up." If, however, your nature impels you, even against your will, to move in the wrong direction, toward egoic desires and away from God, strive at least to detach yourself mentally from your wrong actions, which are induced by habit. The time will come when their own stored up energy will tire and diminish. At that time, if you have not contributed to that energy by your consenting will, you will find it possible at last to redirect your energies more constructively. Thus, through Holy Scriptures, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, friends. It's so great to be with you. And how can we not smile after that amazing celebratory dance? And thank you so much. It was, as soon as you started, I found myself just feeling, yes, this is the way to meet tests, right? This is the way to meet tests. And boy, not easy to say, hey, of course, we're dancing with God, we're dancing with the divine. We'll just have a wonderful time. Let's have a wonderful time. That is the spirit of the teachings. It's, to my experience of Swami Kriyananda, one of my favorite things to listen to, and you can hear these on the treasure talks, is Swamiji laughing. Right? So if he's reading P.G. Wodehouse, which I have wonderful connections with Tandava about when he would put on these productions, and sometimes I got to be part of it. But, he would laugh spontaneously in other talks. And the depth of freedom and the upliftment of joy in that laughter, it just immediately changes your consciousness. He embodied that, right? He embodied what our Whispers reading so beautifully talked about. And to me, these are the two spectrums of how do we meet tests. One is know you're a lion. Yeah, know you're a lion. Like, you are divine. We are divine. There's nothing in this world greater than that truth. And I love in the reading, it said, these little creatures of fear, worry, anxiety, trepidation. And sometimes I will say, they do not feel like little creatures, right? And I do not feel like a lion, and it's really hard to dance, right? Like, that's my truth. So in the reading today, where Swamiji says, we will be met. We will encounter temptation and tests. We will. So just Lakshmi's beautiful talk last week, does Satan exist? Yes, right? That energy, that power that's talked about today in the reading of downward pulling consciousness is real. And sometimes we're more aware of it than others. Yeah, sometimes we're dancing. We're just going along, it's all good. And I was thinking about, well, how do I get through tests, right? And some of you know my husband James just went through surgery, and he's big tests. I mean, just really big tests on the physical body level that impact consciousness. I feel confident he won't mind me mentioning, because it's been mentioned in here. So he was diagnosed with, do I even remember? No, cancer. And prostate cancer, and the prognosis is very good, which we're grateful for. It's still a journey, you just don't know. This is life, we don't know. But what James and I talked about is he noticed for himself in particular how interesting it was in terms of consciousness, the difference between the day before diagnosis and the day after. And Mary Kretzmann talks about how she's the leader of Yogananda's Divine Will Healing Prayers Ministry. And I've been in some classes. I highly recommend, if you ever feel at all inspired. Rita leads beautiful. She leads these prayers for us. They came from Yogananda, and it's tapping into this divine energy that we are made of, right? And sending it out. So what Mary says is that if you can begin the prayers before you know what's going on, more power can come in, because the mind attaches. Oh, I'm this now. Oh, I didn't know that yesterday, but now I know that, right? So I've been thinking about different tests. I have a private student who reached out to me a few months ago. She was diagnosed, very surprisingly for her, with PTSD. Now, it's not surprising in terms of what she was experiencing, but it makes no sense to her, right? Like, she can't logically add things up. She's a yogi, and she's been on this path a long time, and so part of the battle is, how could this happen to me? I must have failed in some way spiritually, that I let my consciousness be so affected by it. And one of the realities of that is that it's the nervous system, I've heard it talked about in this way, gets hijacked. It gets hijacked. And so you're in a state, if you're activated, highly activated, of terror, really. Your nervous system is reading everything as danger. She reached out to me because she has a great physician, she's got a great team, but she needed spiritual support. And the medical community couldn't provide her with that. Right? They just said right out, like, we actually can't do that. We encourage it, we think it's wonderful, but we can't deliver that. So, she and I have been working using the tools of yoga, using what she knows. And part of what we're looking at is, and I will say for myself, some of you know this, but I have complex PTSD. I've been working with it for many years. And so I could normalize the experience for her and just talk about, it is a reality, it's not who you are. It is a reality. It is a reality to be worked with. So like for her, and I'm not laughing about it, but to wake up in the morning and feel like, I don't know how I'm going to get through the day. I don't have any idea how I'm going to get through this day. I said, yeah, me neither. Yeah, me neither. What I've come to is that's a grace, right? Like, I don't know why certain tests have happened in my life. I have no idea. Well, maybe someday I'll know. But what I do know, and I've learned this through experience, and also I remember a talk that Jyotish gave about karma, bad karma, good karma. So easy to feel like tests mean bad karma. I had some friends they don't follow these teachings. They have some spiritual inclination. They've heard of karma, right? So they know enough about karma to know that it's energy coming back to you from what you've put out. And the husband said to me, I was over visiting them, they'd been going through some real trials. And he said, we've come to the conclusion we must have been miserable people in our previous life, right? Like, oh man, what did we do to have these many trials come, right? And on one level, it's humorous, right? And on another level, they were really struggling with that. And so I could, at least in that moment, offer these teachings about karma. Karma, it's true, it's energy that comes back, but what's happening is an opportunity for us to learn. It's not punishment. It's not retribution. Tests are interesting because the conscious mind comes up with stories. That's what I've seen. For myself, for others, we come up with stories about, in this case, my friend, we must have been horrible people. I mean, come on, how many? That's the only thing that would make any sense. And yet, what I've learned through these teachings is, and this is what Jyotish was saying, good karma, bad karma, on a spiritual level, the way to evaluate that, we don't really want to be looking at karma that way. Karma is karma, right? But the mind can't help it most of the time. So if you're evaluating it, the way to evaluate it is what does it elicit in you? What does it call forth in you? Right? So and he used the example, I've heard this before, which is, let's say you win the lottery. Great karma, wonderful, yay. But what can happen out of that is that because of the financial success and support, so much ease, you're good. So like maybe you were on a spiritual path, kind of working at it, growing, and you're kind of like, I'm going to take a little vacation, right? And I'll get back to that, right? And so that would not be good karma spiritually. That would not be good karma. Anything that leads us away from our dedication to grow spiritually and awaken to the lion soul, divine self that we are, right? Tests, they don't always do this, but boy, they can bring us to God. And they certainly have brought me to God. No question about it. And my friend, who's reached out to me, who I'm working with, her sadhana is stellar right now. Like, wow, japa all the time, chanting. Like, we go through the list, yep, every day. Now, her experience is, but I still have this, right? I still have this, it's not gone. What I'm offering to her, in part because I know this through yoga, is that and my own journey with this, is that the nervous system does eventually reset itself. And these tools are incredible tools. That's always inspiring for me, is that, I joked the other day, I said, I feel like I'm becoming a neuroscientist. Every training I take, everything I do, keeps coming back to these teachings. That's so nice. It's so nice. It's just so nice. Like, wow, something greater than myself got me on this path, for sure. Right? That all of these things work. And it just reassures me. I was thinking of being in a class one time, again, a number of years ago, and a class on addictions counseling and the correlation between how often there's trauma with that and PTSD, and I was sitting next to this woman, and they go through the list of, here's how you can diagnose it. So if you're working with someone, here are the things that would lead to that, likely lead to that. And they're going through the list, and I was just watching myself feel heavier and heavier and heavier. And finally they finish, and the teacher keeps talking, the professor, and the woman next to me looks at me, and she goes, what do you do if you've got 8 out of the 10, right? Like, you're just like sitting there going, oh, suddenly you realize, oh, I have this, right? And all I said to her is, I know, yeah, and it's the diagnosis piece, right? It's the title. Oh gosh, that's who I am. Well, nothing had happened different than we just heard a list of characteristics that could say this. And actually what I found in the path of yoga and these teachings, and Swami says, to meet life. That's the thing, all these great stories of him in the car driving, the car hits the bus, it's swirling around, Swami, Swami, someone's in the background. And he's just calm, centered, focused. Okay, comes to a stop. Yes, right? And the ability, he was fully present and committed to every moment, to every experience. And he was living in the lion consciousness of God, right? So it's just remarkable. I was talking to Chidambar and Amara the other day and just remembering, because watching James go through this, and boy, he's, sometimes, and I mean it sincerely, I call him St. James. I mean it, yeah, because he's doing the battle of consciousness. He does it, right? He works it. And it's a blessing in my life. It's a blessing. I know it's a blessing for him. I'll just say this. We were a few years ago doing Guru Day. We still do this, but it was right when he had gotten his spiritual name. And his birth name is Jim. And he'd kind of sat with what feels right. And James, James is on his birth certificate, actually, not Jim, but his family called him Jim. And the more research he did about Saint James, who is the patron saint of pilgrimage, right? And so the Camino de Santiago that you just went on, it's about Saint James, right? It's like how to live as life is a pilgrimage. And so James had just been, it just seemed, it's beautiful, it's perfect. So now we're in Guru Day, and I think it was our first Guru Day, so much going on. And we had this tiny window to come back and rest. Okay, we're gonna go back, everything's set up, everyone's good, we're gonna get something to eat. James said to me when we came in, I'm gonna just lie down. I go, okay, great. So he lies down. I think I was getting something to eat, I'm not sure. And all of a sudden, I didn't hear the phone ring, but I heard him say, hello. Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, we can take care of that. And I was like, wonder what that is. He came out, he said, so-and-so called, they're having difficulty, I'm gonna go over to their apartment. I go, okay, so much for that nap. I guess there's not going to be a rest right now. And he was just beautiful about it. Right? Just like went on over, helped, and I thought, and I think I said to him in that moment the first time, St. James. I said, okay, St. James, so to meet it with dancing, to meet it with joy, to say, oh, okay, let me serve. Let me serve selflessly, because it changes our consciousness. And boy, does Guru Day do that. I know we share this with Kamala Devi, and wow, it is really something that seva, by the end of it, I mean, the Guru Day event anyway is that for everyone in my experience, but to be part of the seva and watch the seva team, for all of you who are part of the seva team, it changes your consciousness. It just does. So, so this idea of identity, how to meet what is happening with what Yogananda said, and I did find it a stunning statement. I heard the first time I heard Asha mention this, which is Yogananda said, most people make the mistake of thinking their karma has anything to do with them. It's like, what? And then I thought of the chant we were singing today, the beautiful chant, the second one. Like, I drown in myself, I die to myself, I lose myself and find myself. And the paradox of, wait a minute, what are you doing? You're letting go of yourself and you're finding yourself? And it reminded me of something in, I think it's Awake to Superconsciousness that Swami wrote, where there's a section, we studied this in Kriya Satsang for a while, when he talks about self-acceptance. And he said, it's very popular, this idea of self-acceptance. And he said, I'm for it, right? And the idea of kind of accepting ourselves where we are, it's important, it's valuable. But he said, people don't go far enough with it, right? They accept their personality, they accept their limitations, they accept their ego. It's good, and we have them, it's better to accept it, right? But they don't accept themselves as a divine soul. Like, keep going. Self-acceptance, keep going. What is the self? What is the divine self? So this idea, I've pondered it for a long time. Karma having nothing to do with me. Well, it doesn't have anything to do with my divine reality, right? It's the individualized jiva that incarnated, has made lots of decisions, lived lots of lifetimes. As Asha says, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Right? There's a great little metaphor story of, you may have heard this, I've heard many different renditions of it, but you walk down the street, there's a hole in the street, you don't see it, you fall in. It's a bummer, right? You're in the hole. You're in the hole, you can't figure out how to get out. Now what do I do? After a long, uncomfortable time, you actually figure out how to get out. All right, got out of that hole. And you move on, you go down the street. Sometime later, you're walking, same street, you see it, and you go, all right, there's a hole on the street. Remember that. I'm gonna walk down the street, remember there's a hole. You fall in. You're like, I'm in the hole. I remembered there was a hole, I'm in the hole again. It's a bummer. Right? So there you are, stuck in that hole, stuck with yourself, and eventually, after some time, not quite as long as the first time, you get out. Thank God I'm out of that hole, right? So off you go. You're good for a while. Walking along, there's the street, there's the hole, right? You're like, okay, here's the street, here's the hole. I know it's there, I've fallen in twice. Not gonna fall in, I'm good, right? You fall in. It's like, what is going on? Right? There you are, you're stuck. Not as long. It's uncomfortable, not even as uncomfortable. You're not as despairing as you were the first time, right? You're not as mad at yourself as you were the second time. You're kind of like, here I am in this hole, stupid hole. I got out last time, I'll probably get out again. Yeah, I wish I didn't fall in it, but I did. And you get out. Whew, on you go. Some time passes, walking along, you see the street, you're like, I'm taking a different street. I have learned my lesson. I am not walking down that street anymore. Temptation comes, tests come. Sometimes we get these warnings, you know. That street is not a good one. And even when you know it, even when you're like, I think I'm good, okay, it's not recommended. It's not recommended. And the wisdom that says, all right, I'm going to take a different street, rather than I'm a lion, I can handle it. Swami has said, don't go out, and Lakshmi talked about this last week with Jesus being tempted. Don't test. Don't you test. Like, okay, how much can I handle in terms of adversity, right? And it'll come to us anyway. It'll come to us anyway. And if you're still in that learning process, all right. You're still in the learning process, it's okay. So what I've learned, because I've had teachers help me. So, well, you're still learning. You thought you could do it. That's all right, you can't. It's fine. So back to my friend who wakes up, it's a very difficult thought to have. Like when you feel like you're just so challenged and compromised by your own nervous system and consciousness that, breakfast is like, how am I gonna do it? If that's real for her. And what I shared, because she knows these teachings and these practices, is that you have something great on your side. So not only these tools and teachings, which part of her therapy has included breathing, pranayama, and it's sweet because she's like, everything we've been working on, right? They recommend. I go, yeah, the path of yoga is great for this. Like, it really is. But what I said to her, and I called upon Yogananda's scientific healing affirmations. And boy, if you haven't read them, they are a jewel, they're a gem. And he is so strong in that. He is the reading of whispers, be a lion, and be undeterred by what appears to be evidence, right? So declare your health, your wellness, because what we're claiming is our divine reality. The body can be having challenges. The nervous system can be having challenges. It can. And it feels like me. Like these thoughts feel like my thoughts. Yogananda said, no, they're universal. Thoughts are universal. They're not individually rooted. They do sound like me. They're in my head. It's awfully convincing. But it's a vibration I've gotten on. So I'm on that channel, and that channel can be changed. And all the tools of yoga help with that. And so anyway, back to my friend, what I said is that, the blessing I have found in this challenge, in this test, is there's no question I need God. None. There's no question I need God. No. I've wondered, I wonder how come after all this time it's not completely healed. I don't know, right? It's like, it's not because I don't love God or feel close to God or use all these tools. Yeah, so there's a prayer I learned from the 12-step community. Basically, you decide God, right? So it's a prayer where you're offering yourself to the divine. Remove from me those things that stand in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. If not removed, wonder if it's useful. Like, well, I wonder if it's useful, right? It's not removed yet, right? And I'm watching, right? I don't know, someday it may be removed, but what I found is the power of being able to have a reality and not have it be you, and not be concerned. And that's a lot of my message to her. I said, I've just really learned to normalize it. Oh yeah, it's definitely happening. It's real, but it's okay. It's all right. So call on God, and I'm watching her do that. And we're looking at scientific healing affirmations of hang on to this with authority. You hold these tools with authority. Gary led us in purification this morning and said, we know these are at least 5,000 years old, these mantras. They're older than that. Civilizations have risen and fallen, and people have been chanting these mantras. There's tremendous power in these tools and these teachings, way beyond what the conscious mind can perceive. But miracles are happening within us all the time. We say in purification, by the grace of our masters, you are free. So we practice seeking. We practice coming. I practice. I'll just speak of myself. I practice it, right? And also the certain tests I've had in my life, like, wow, I'll wrap up with this. I had a dear friend, when we first kind of learned about these concepts, she said to me, I could just see us in the astral world, right? Getting excited about coming and saying, well, what are you going to study in this school of life? What are you studying? Oh, I'm studying, unconditional love. That's great. What are you studying? I'm going to take forgiveness. I've heard it's a really good course. Yeah. It's a tough one. I think I'm up for it though, right? And she's like, what were we thinking? Right? Here we were feeling free. Oh, I think I'll take that. I think I'll take unconditional love and forgiveness. Well, what do you have to get there? Tests. Like, can I love unconditionally? I don't know. I know that with God it's possible. That's what I know. I definitely know that. And I believe in these teachings and the power of them. And I draw strength on Swamiji's confidence. And sometimes I just reflect on the fact that he walked with Master in the body. I mean, most of his discipleship was Master out of the body. But he was ready at that moment in time to fully understand the power of God and the power of this divine soul and receive it. And so he could say with such confidence, let's go up to Reno and we'll wear Indian clothing and we'll chant on the harmonium. I listened to the first wave of the Ananda folk, and they're like, what? Like, yeah, let's do that, because people need to hear about chanting. And the ego of like, Swamiji, they're going to think we're crazy, right? Let's wear these outfits and travel the country. I remember Ramurti saying, light blue, robin's egg blue, little caplet sleeves. You'd have to know Ramurti to know how humorous that would be. And it's like, and he said, you just had to keep surrendering. You just had to keep saying. Swamiji knew what he was bringing. He knew what he was bringing. And he knew there'll be some who are ready, they're thirsty, they'll get it, right? Others are receiving the blessing anyway, even if they're not. So I practice that as well. So this is what I'll wrap up with. At a course on Patanjali, up at the Expanding Light, let's see, Pranaba and Parvati, right? So Parvati was saying at the beginning of the class, these teachings are powerful and ancient and full of sacred mystery. Don't try to understand them. Don't try to understand them. Receive them. Receive them. So relax. It was an intensive teacher training. You just go in there, you're like, oh, I've got to learn this, right? She's like, take a breath, lean back. This is one you'll want to repeat, right? So just relax and let it wash over you and let it come into you and let it awaken you, right? Just be receptive. So how do we meet tests? Like this joyful dance of, find the joy, hold on to that, and be a lion. Be a lion, know who you are. And let's do it together, because boy, I can't do it alone. So great to be with you.